Omida was a small village in Nigeria. It sat between green hills and clear rivers. The sun shone bright on the fields where the people walked. Every morning, the villagers woke up early. They rubbed sleep from their eyes and stepped outside their mud huts. The air smelled of fresh grass and earth. The women walked to the river with baskets of clothes. They scrubbed the cloth on big rocks and laughed about little things. The men grabbed their nets and went to the streams. They stood in the cool water, waiting for fish to swim by. Others took spears and hunted in the forest nearby. Children ran around the village, chasing each other with sticks. Their giggles filled the air like music. In the middle of Omida grew a huge iroko tree. Its roots dug deep into the ground, and its branches reached high into the sky. The tree was old, older than anyone could remember. Every evening, when the sun went down, the villagers gathered under it. They sat on mats or logs and talked. Old men told stories about brave hunters and wise spirits. Women sang songs, their voices soft and sweet. Young boys beat drums with their hands, making a rhythm that made everyone want to dance. The people of Omida were happy. They knew each other's names and shared what they had. If someone's roof leaked, neighbors came with straw to fix it. If a family had no food, others brought yams or fish. It was a good place to live. In this village lived a young woman named Ada. She was tall and had a gentle smile. Ada was an orphan. When she was 5, a big storm came. Her parents were in a canoe on the river. The wind howled, and the water turned wild. The canoe flipped over, and they drowned. Villagers found little Ada the next day. She held onto a piece of wood, shivering and scared. They took her in and cared for her. Mama Ngozi, a warm woman with grey hair, treated Ada like her own daughter. She cooked for her and taught her how to plant seeds. Ada grew up strong. She had a small farm behind her hut. She grew ugu leaves, okra, and red tomatoes. Her hands were always dirty from digging in the soil. Ada loved to help people. If someone was sick, she brought them soup. If a child was hungry, she gave them a handful of her harvest. Everyone in Omida liked her. Ada had a lover named Chidi. He was a fisherman with big shoulders and bright eyes. Chidi was good at his work. He stood in the stream all day and came back with baskets full of fish. Even when the water was empty for others, Chidi found a catch. People said he had luck, but he said it was just hard work. Chidi was honest too. He never took more than his share and gave fish to old women who could not fish anymore. He met Ada when they were kids. They played by the river and climbed trees together. As they grew up, their hearts grew closer. Now, they walked hand in hand and talked about the future. They wanted to marry and build a house near the water. Chidi's family loved Ada. His mother, Mama Ngozi, hugged her tight and said, "You are a gift to us, Ada. You will be my daughter one day." One night, Ada and Chidi went for a walk. The sky was dark, with no moon to light their way. They followed a path into the forest near Omida. It was a quiet place where lovers went to be alone. They held hands and whispered about their dreams. They wanted a big wedding with drums and dancing. Suddenly, they heard a noise. It was far off but strange. Drums beat slowly, and voices chanted low. Ada stopped and tilted her head. "What is that?" she asked. Chidi frowned. "I don't know. Let's see." They crept through the trees, stepping over roots and vines. The sounds grew louder. They hid behind big bushes and peeked out. In a clearing stood Chief Okonkwo. He was a tall man with a hard face. White clay covered his cheeks, and his eyes looked wild in the torchlight. 5 men stood with him. They wore dark cloth and held sticks. In the middle was a boy, maybe 10 years old. Ropes tied his hands and feet. He shook and cried, "Please, let me go." His voice was small and scared. Eda's stomach turned. Chidi gripped her arm tight. Chief Okonkwo held a knife. It was long and sharp, shining in the fire's glow. He raised it high. The boy screamed. Then, with one fast move, the chief cut the boy's throat. Blood poured out, dark and wet, onto the dirt. The men chanted louder, their voices deep and fast. The boy fell still. They dug a hole under a twisted tree and threw his body in. They covered it with leaves and walked away. Eda's hands shook. She wanted to yell, but Chidi covered her mouth. His eyes were big with fear and anger. They waited until the men were gone, then ran back to the village. They didn't sleep that night. They sat in Eda's hut, thinking about what they saw. The chief had killed a child for power. They couldn't let it happen again. The next morning, Eda and Chidi called everyone to the Iroko tree. The sun was just up, painting the sky orange. Villagers came fast, wiping sleep from their eyes. They stood in a big circle. Eda took a deep breath. "Last night, we saw something bad," she said. "Chief Okonkwo killed a boy in the forest. He cut his throat and buried him. It was a sacrifice for evil spirits to get rich." People gasped. An old woman dropped her walking stick. Chidi stepped up. "We can't stay quiet. He might hurt more children. We have to stop him." Some villagers whispered to each other. Others looked down, scared. Chief Okonkwo had power. He owned big farms and had strong men who followed him. A man said, "Are you sure?" Eda nodded. "We saw it. It's true." Before anyone could say more, the chief heard about the meeting. He pushed through the crowd, his face red with anger. "Who talks about me like this?" he shouted. "You lie." Eda looked at him. "No. We saw you." The chief's eyes burned. He turned to his men. "Take them. Take their families too. They won't talk again." That night, the chief's men came like shadows. They kicked open Eda's door and pulled her out. She kicked and scratched, but they held her tight. At Chidi's house, they grabbed him and his family. His father was old and weak. His mother cried loud. His two little sisters hugged each other, tears on their faces. The men dragged them all to the village square. The moon watched from above. Villagers hid in their huts, peeking out. They wanted to help but were too afraid. The chief's men tied Eda and Chidi's families to posts. They hit them with sticks. The wood cracked against skin, and blood fell to the ground. Chidi's father got a hit to the head and stopped moving. His mother screamed, and a man cut her throat. The sisters begged, "No, no." But the men stabbed them until they were quiet. Chidi pulled at his ropes. "Stop, you devils," he yelled. The chief laughed. "No one stops me." His men stabbed Chidi in the chest. He coughed blood and fell, his hand reaching for Eda. Eda was last. She lay on the ground, hurt and bleeding. The chief stood over her. "You should have said nothing," he said with a grin. But Eda wasn't done. She looked up at the sky. With all she had left, she shouted, "Obianuju, spirit of vengeance, hear me. These evil men killed us for telling the truth. Curse this village. Let anyone who speaks die." The air went cold. A big wind blew hard, shaking the huts. The chief stepped back, his smile gone. Eda's eyes closed. She was dead. Her voice reached Obianuju, a spirit from old stories. It was tall and dark, with eyes like fire. The ground shook, and a deep roar filled the night. The next day, the curse started. Obi, a farmer, yelled at his goat, "Get in there. He grabbed his throat and fell dead. His wife screamed and dropped too. Nkechi sang to her baby. She fell over, still, while the baby cried. At night, Emeka, a boy, talked in his sleep. Morning came, and he was cold. The villagers learned fast. Speaking killed them. They stopped talking. They pointed or waved instead. They wrote in the dirt with sticks. The market went quiet. No one bargained or laughed. Children couldn't play loud. Omida was silent. Days passed in silence. People ate without words, their eyes dull and empty. They tied cloths over their mouths at night, scared of dreams. Every morning, someone died, a whisper, a snore, a cry. Fear gripped Omida tight, choking it like a rope around the neck. The village felt like a graveyard, with only the wind daring to hum through the trees. Then Ifeoma came back. She'd been with her aunt far away, learning to weave baskets and mend clothes. She walked into Omida, smiling and humming an old song her mother used to sing. But no one said hello. The streets were quiet as death. People stared, their faces pale, their eyes wide with terror. Ifeoma's smile faded fast. She saw Mama Ada sitting by a hut, her hands shaking as she scratched words into the dirt with a stick. "Why is it so quiet?" Ifeoma asked, her voice cutting through the stillness like a knife. Mama Ada jumped, pressing a finger to her lips quick. She wrote in the dirt, "Curse. Speak and die." Then, with slow, careful strokes, she told Ifeoma the whole story, about Ada and Chidi's murder by the chief's orders, his greed for power, and the angry spirit of Buneg who caused the village to silence. Ifeoma's heart shattered. She remembered Ada's laugh by the river, bright and free, and Chidi's silly jokes under the Iroko tree. They were her friends, her family. Tears stung her eyes as she wrote, "Can we stop it?" Mama Ada's hand shook as she scratched, "Yes, but it's hard. Go to Obuneg's cave. Give a big sacrifice. Only a good heart can do it." Ifeoma didn't wait. She couldn't let her village die. She packed a small bag with bread, water, and a sharp knife, hugged Mama Ada tight, and left as the sun peeked over the hills. The forest was thick and cruel. Thorns tore at her arms, leaving red scratches that stung with every step. Her feet bled, the ground soaking up the drops like it was thirsty. She walked all day, her stomach growling, her throat dry as dust. By noon, she reached the river. It roared, wild and deep, the water crashing over sharp rocks. Ifeoma grabbed a fallen log to cross, but the current snatched her fast. She went under, water flooding her mouth, her nose, her lungs. She slammed into a rock, pain exploding in her ribs. She clawed at the water, kicking with all her strength, and finally dragged herself to the other side, soaked, bruised, and gasping. Night came cold and dark. Wolves howled close, their cries bouncing off the trees. Ifeoma hid under a bush, hugging her knees, her heart pounding. She saw their eyes glowing in the shadows, yellow and hungry. She clutched her knife, too scared to sleep, whispering silent prayers to her mother's spirit. The wolves circled for hours, sniffing the air, but finally left as the sky turned gray. At dawn, she pushed on. A storm hit hard, rain pounded her face, wind whipped her hair, and mud sucked at her feet. Lightning cracked the sky, and a tree fell, nearly crushing her. She jumped back, her breath fast, her body shaking. She thought of turning back, of running to her aunt's safe house, but Ada's face flashed in her mind, smiling, alive, and she kept going. Later, a huge snake blocked her path. Its body was thick as a log, its scales shiny black, its eyes cold and cruel. It hissed, fangs dripping with venom. Ifeoma froze, her legs trembling. She stepped back slow, but the snake lunged. She swung her knife, slicing its side. It reared back, hissing loud, then slithered into the bushes. Ifeoma ran past, her chest tight, her hands shaking. After 4 days, she reached the cave. Her body ached, her feet swollen, her ribs sore, her skin scratched and burned by the sun. The cave loomed ahead, black and deep, like a giant's open mouth. She stepped in, the air turning icy, her breath puffing white. Shadows moved on the walls, whispering her name. She knelt on the cold stone and thought, Obianuju, am Ifeoma. My village hurts because of the chief. Please take the curse. I'll give anything. A voice like thunder roared, you want it gone. It cost much. What do you give? Ifeoma pointed to her mouth. She'd lose her voice. Obianuju laughed, a sound that shook the cave. The voice is too small. Give me your happiest memory too. Ifeoma's heart sank. Her memories were treasures, her mother's lullabies, Ada's laugh, Chidi's silly dances by the fire. But she saw the village in her mind, silent and broken. She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. Choose one, Obianuju said. She picked her best day, playing with Ada and Chidi by the river, their feet splashing in the cool water, the sun warm on their skin, their laughter mixing with the wind. A sharp pain stabbed her head. The memory burned away, leaving a dark, empty hole. She gasped, clutching her skull, feeling lost and alone. Still not enough, Obianuju growled. Give me your ability to love. Ifeoma's breath stopped. To never feel love again, to never care for anyone, to never feel joy or warmth, that was a living death. She thought of her village, of the children growing up in fear, of families torn apart. Sobbing, she nodded. A fire ripped through her chest. She screamed silently as something tore free, the glow of love, the comfort of friendship, all gone. She was left hollow, a shell with no heart. She fell to the ground, shaking, her tears cold on the stone. But wait, Obianuju said, its voice low. One more thing. Give me your strength. Ifeoma looked up, weak and confused. I have none left, she thought. You do, it said. Your will to fight, your fire to live. Give it, or the curse stays. She wanted to say no, to crawl away and die there. But she saw Mama Ada's trembling hands, the boy who died whispering for water. With a final, broken nod, she gave it up. A heavy weight crushed her body. Her arms grew heavy, her legs numb. She could barely stand, her spirit drained. The curse is gone, Obianuju said. But the chief's evil festers. Face him, or it's all for nothing. A wind blasted her out of the cave. She landed hard on the dirt, her body screaming in pain. She couldn't speak, couldn't love, couldn't remember her best day, and now couldn't fight. She lay there, staring at the sky, wondering if she'd die. But she had to go back. For Omida. The walk back was agony. Her feet dragged, blisters bursting, blood mixing with mud. Her stomach twisted with hunger, her tongue stuck to her dry mouth. She stumbled through the forest, leaning on trees, her vision blurry. Rain came again, soaking her, chilling her bones. She fell by the river, too weak to cross. She lay there, water lapping at her legs, thinking it might take her. Then, a soft voice called, "Child, are you alive?" Ifeoma opened her eyes. An old woman stood over her, her face wrinkled but kind, her hands full of herbs. "Your heart bad," the woman said. Ifeoma tried to speak, but no sound came. She pointed to her throat, shaking her head. "You can't talk," the woman said. "Come, I'll help." The woman pulled Ifeoma up, her grip strong. She took her to a small hut hidden in the trees. She gave her warm soup, bitter herbs for the pain, and wrapped her in a dry cloth. Ifeoma slept on a mat, her dreams empty and black. In the morning, the woman gave her bread and a walking stick. Be strong, child, she said. Your path is cruel, but your soul is good. Ifeoma nodded, grateful but unable to feel it. She left, leaning on the stick, each step a battle. Wolves howled again that night, closer than before. She hid in a hollow tree, shaking, her knife gone, lost in the river. They scratched at the back, growling, but dawn chased them away. As she neared Omida, shouts broke the silence. The chief's guards jumped from the bushes, their spears gleaming. Stop her, one yelled. The chief wants her head. Ifeoma ran, her legs screaming, her breath short. She had no voice to beg, no strength to fight. A guard grabbed her arm, twisting it hard. She fell, pain shooting through her shoulder. Another kicked her side, right where the rock had hit her. She called up, gasping silently. They tied her hands with rough rope, laughing as they dragged her to the village square. The chief waited there, his eyes burning with hate, his robes bright with stolen gold. You dared defy me, he roared. You think you can stop me, mute girl? Ifeoma stared at him, trembling but steady. She pulled a piece of cloth from her bag with words sewn in shaky thread, the curse is gone. You must pay. The chief laughed loud. And who will make me? These fools. He waved at the villagers hiding in their huts, their faces pressed to windows. They are too scared to move. He grabbed her cloth and tore it, throwing it to the ground. You're nothing, he spat. He raised his knife, the blade catching the sunlight. Ifeoma closed her eyes, waiting for the end. But then, a small voice said, she's right. A boy stepped out, skinny and scared, his voice shaking but alive. The curse is gone. He didn't fall. A woman whispered, it's true, and stood tall. Voices grew, soft at first, then loud, angry. The chief's face twisted with rage. He lunged at Ifeoma, knife slashing. She rolled away, but he grabbed her hair, yanking her back. Pain burned her scalp. She kicked his shin, weak but enough to make him stumble. The villagers rushed in, their fear turning to fire. They tackled the guards, wrestling spears away. A woman hit the chief with a pot, and he fell, cursing. Take them to the tree, a man shouted. They dragged the chief and his guards to the iroko tree, tying them tight with thick ropes. The chief screamed, promising revenge, but his voice faded as night fell. By morning, he was silent, his body limp. Ifeoma stood quiet, her body bruised, her hands still raw from the ropes. The villagers cheered, hugging each other, their voices loud and free. Children ran, laughing for the first time in months. They built a shrine for Ada, Chidi, and Ifeoma, piling it with flowers, yams, and carved stones. They told her story around fires, saying, be brave like Ifeoma. She saved us. But Ifeoma felt nothing. She couldn't speak, couldn't love, couldn't remember her happiest day, couldn't even feel strong. She lived among them, a hero, but alone in her silence. The villagers brought her food, wove her clothes, sat with her by the fire. She nodded, smiled with her eyes, but her heart stayed cold. One day, she walked to the river, the place where she'd played with Ada and Chidi. She sat on the bank, staring at the water, trying to see their faces. But they were gone, blurry shadows in her mind. She touched the water, cold against her fingers, and felt no sadness, no longing, just a deep, endless nothing. A week later, she visited the shrine alone. She knelt before it, her knees sinking into the dirt. She thought of Ada and Chidi, of her mother, of the life she'd had. She wanted to cry, to scream, to feel something. But she couldn't. The wind blew soft, rustling the flowers, but it didn't touch her soul. A little girl ran up, her braids bouncing. Thank you, Ifeoma, she said, hugging her tight. She gave Ifeoma a yellow flower, bright and warm. Ifeoma took it, patted the girl's head, but felt no joy, no glow. The girl smiled and ran off, her laughter fading into the village. Ifeoma stayed by the shrine as the sun set. She looked at the flower, turning it in her hands. She tried to remember what happiness felt like, what love tasted like. But it was all gone, stolen by Obianuju, buried in the cave. She was a shell, a shadow, a name on a shrine. Months passed. The village grew loud and strong, but Ifeoma faded. She walked slower, ate less, sat by the river more. People watched her, worried, but she waved them away with a weak hand. One night, she lay under the iroko tree, staring at the stars. She closed her eyes, picturing Ada and Chidi, hoping to dream of them. But her sleep was dark, empty, silent. And so she lived on, loved by all but unable to love back, her silence a heavy crown, her sacrifice a wound that never healed.